Hey, everybody, I'm back. Syntax was fast. This time we're going to talk about do support. So what do we mean by do support? Look at this sentence. I care for her. Now compare it to this sentence. I do not care for her. Two things have been added. The first thing is the not particle, which we have talked about in another video about negation. If you want to know more about that, I suggest you go and watch that one. And the second one is do. So do is what we're going to concern ourselves with for this lesson. This do support, this particle, the questions we're going to ask are, how does do come to be introduced into the derivation and why? Why do we need it? We need the explanatory side dealt with as well. So we're going to take the sentence, I do not care for her, and first start with the tree diagram for the sentence. So we have the pronoun her and the preposition for. This is a preposition, this is a pronoun. They both merge to create a prepositional phrase, which then merges with the VP, creating the structure care for her. We continue our derivation. The next thing is the negative phrase. And if you've been following, as I said, you'll see that the negative phrase is usually headed, in modern English at least, by a null negative head or non-overt. And of course, if we use the bar, that means we're going to move on next to the negative phrase. And in its specifier, we will have the particle not. And we're going to move on to a T bar, giving us the head T. And here, this is a finite sentence. So we clearly have the tense feature, and this will merge into a TP. More specifically, the pronoun, the subject pronoun would be I. Now, so far, so good. Just to make them stand out a little bit, I'm going to circle them using a different color. That is to say, if I can draw circles to begin. Okay, I'm not going to circle anything because I can't draw circles. So the abomination circles are gone. Now let's talk about what we have now. So since this is modern English, and as we have seen in the negative particles video, the T is weak, doesn't hit the gym. So it cannot attract the V. The V cannot be attracted. So this tense here is stranded. It needs something to attach to. The other solution would be to use affix hopping, to hop into the nearest C commanded head. But when you look at the nearest C commanded head, it's the empty neg, or not empty, the one occupied by the null. It doesn't have any morphological content to attach to. Therefore, the affix hopping, for short, is not going to work either. So I'm going to pretend that I have not accidentally deleted the whole tree and I had to draw to draw another one anew and continue the video. So we said that we cannot attract this because the tense or the T is weak. And we cannot do affix hopping onto here because it's not overt. The head neg is not overt. Now, careful so that we don't delete the tree again. What's the solution then? So the solution, lo and behold, for the derivation not to crash, is to insert a do onto the head of the T, the tense. And this fixes it. If we take do and we insert it over here, the problem is solved. Now, the tense is attached to something, and that tense affects the do itself. In this case, the form doesn't change. But had it been the past, for example, in the tense, then it would be did. It would be did. I did not care for her. That's pretty much why we use do support, because there is really no other way we could have the derivation succeed and not crash. There are some more nuances that we're going to see once we go into the negative form, once we talk about yes, no questions. And that's what we're going to see and discuss in the remainder of the video. So because we're all about being minimalist as much as we can, we have talked, so far we have two things that kind of deal with the same thing. We have the affix hopping, and we've talked extensively about it especially in the negative or another look at negation video or negative phrases. And then we have the one that we've just discussed now, which is the do support. The idea with affix attachment, the new principle that I'm going to introduce right now, is to combine both of them into one so that we stay true to the spirit of minimalism. Okay, so let's look at this principle and see how it works. Affix attachment is what? It's when the PF, the phonological form component, processes a T constituent containing an unattached, undeleted tense affix. So when we finish the derivation, we send it to the PF component of the grammar, and then it needs to be processed. If there is a T constituent that is not attached to anything, like we've seen in the previous sentence, we have to run it through an algorithm to make sure that it works. And the algorithm is if else. So if this condition applies, deal with it in such a way. Else, if the condition number 1 doesn't apply, then deal with it with the second alternative. So the first one, the first if, is the affix is attached to the closest head, C commanded by T, if that is an overt verb. And this is what is known as affix hopping. For example, if the T has a VP complement headed by an overt verb, we just use affix hopping. The S, for example, he eats food. So the S on the T jumps into the verb. The verb changes from eat to eats. And I hope this is clear, so I don't need to go into the details of it. Okay, if this condition cannot apply, then we can move on to the second alternative, or the else alternative. If not, which means the T does not have a complement headed by an overt verb, just like the example we've seen previously, the expletive. Expletive means semantically contentless. It doesn't have anything. It's just there for the sake of keeping the structure holding together. The expletive or stem do is attached to the tense affix. And this is what is known as do support. So that's pretty much what affix attachments is. So first is C. Is there any head I can just hop to as a tense affix? No. Then support me with do. You cannot leave me hanging in the air. I need to be attached to something. And that's what happens in the PF components of the grammar. Anyways, we have more examples that we need to go to, and I don't intend to make this video too long. Here we have 2 sentences that we're going to try and make 3 diagrams for. He ate the food. Quite simple. Let me start. We have the DP, the food, which merges with the V, eat, to form a VP. And then we go to our T bar and then a T. Here we're going to have a tense, more specifically the past in this case. And then a TP with a specifier pronoun he. Now, affix hopping happens here as you've probably deduced yourself, because the first condition can apply. We have a tense that is stranded. And it hops into eat because it's the closest overt verb that can host the tense affix. Now let's look at the other sentence, which has ellipsis. We're not going to do the whole sentence. I'm only going to do this. He did. But he did is kind of misleading because there is content there that is just been deleted or made implicit, as you shall see in the tree that I'm going to draw right now. We actually have the food again. The structure is not too different from the first one. The V merging with the DP to form a VP. This is a VP, not an MP. And we continue with it. T bar, T with the tense. Then we go on to a TP. In its specifier, we have a pronoun, and the pronoun is he. So because we have ellipses happening in this sentence, there are, or some of the content, some of the morphological content of the sentence is not overt. It's still there structurally, but it's not overt. So the food and eat, we can't really see them, can we? We can only see he and the tense. And I don't want to spoil. We'll see what's going to happen to this. So here we have tense. The tense cannot go, same issue, cannot go in attach, cannot do affix hopping in this case because eat is not overt anymore. Thanks to ellipsis happening, eat is not overt. So we cannot do affix hopping. So the condition A or condition 1 doesn't apply. The condition 2, if you remember, can apply in this case, which is if you can't let me hop, give me a do. And that's what we're going to do. We are, no pun intended, we are going to add a do. So I added a do to the structure. Let me close the bracket. And now the tense can attach to the do, and it actually affects how the do would look like in this case. As you can see, it's did, it's conjugated in the past. And now the tense is attached to something. Hence, the derivation does not crash. Okay, let's move to the next example where it's going to be about yes, no questions. So the sentence now is, did he eat the food? And we're going to start our structure again. We're going to start from the bottom. The food is my D. It is attached to eat, forming a VP. We move on to the T bar with the head T. And this is a transitive sense. So we have tense, a past tense. Moving on to a TP. Here we're going to have a pronoun, which is he. But the derivation doesn't stop here. We're going to move to a C bar headed by a C. And this C has a feature, the interrogative feature. The C is strong, so it's going to attract something. And guess what? We're going to attract the tense feature that is on the T. So in a sense, we're going to do an operation of copy and delete. It's very annoying to change the colors using this. So we're going to delete this one, and we're going to copy that feature onto this place over here. So I'm going to end up in the head C with the tense plus the question interrogative feature. And then the derivation will continue to. Actually, now that I think about it, I don't think we need to extend the CP projection. We can keep it like this. That's it. Okay, so when we reach this stage, we send this to the PF. The PF checks. The first thing that the PF is going to check is the tense feature over here. Let me have the laser pointer. So the tense feature is already deleted, so it doesn't cause a problem at all. Now, that's not where the do support is going to happen. It's still going to happen because we've deleted this one, but we've copied it onto the head C, which means now here is what this particular location is what's going to create problems for the PF components of the grammar. Again, is there any hopping that can happen? No. Is there something else I can do? Yes. Can I use the do support to fix this? Yes. And that's what happens. We attach the do to the content that already exists inside the head C. Plus an R do in a different color. Handwriting is pristine. There you go. Now, as a result, the spell out of the consonants inside the C would be did. And why would it be did? Because of the tense feature and the do. The tense is the past and do changes when that tense is attached to it and it comes out as did. There are other things that are interesting because of this movement, but I'm not going to spoil it. We're going to talk about it later. Okay, so we've explained why we have this sentence as a result. Did he eat the food? Let's move on to the next example. The next one will be yes, no questions, but negative yes, no questions. Didn't he eat the food? Here we have the clitic NT or not, which is going into the mix. And if you've been following, nothing new is going to happen. We're going to follow the same rules and the derivation will be derived successfully. So let's get started. The food, I hope you're not hungry. Merge in with the V to give us a VP. Then we said that the negative phrase lives between the TP and the VP. That's where we're going to position it. Again, watch my video about negative particles and how negation is dealt with. Headed by a null head, we keep going to our negative phrase. In its spec, we have the clitic adverb. And am I running out of space? I hope not. T-bar. So we continue with our tense here. Here, something interesting is going to happen. This negative clitic adverb is going to attach to the tense here. So we're going to have a plus, and this one will actually be deleted from that position, and it will now be hosted on the tense. And this one now is deleted. Let me use another color. Wow, look at that. The line was literally under the first one I drew. Almost perfect. I can't say that about my circles though. So I continue to a TP specifier position is occupied by a pronoun. Since this is an interrogative sentence, we're going to continue and we're going to go into the C projection and the CP phrase or the C phrase or the CP. The CP is going to be headed by a C, and this C has an interrogative feature. Now, just like we did before with the interrogative feature attracting the tense, same thing is going to happen here. So this time around, all the content inside of the T will be deleted. Again, I used the wrong color. Let me use the right color. I don't think the line will be as perfect as the first one. Oh, look, I'm gifted. The interrogative feature will have now the clitic adverb plus the tense. I am running out of room over here. Plus the tense. So we have a kind of a similar situation now. What are we going to do? Can we do affix hopping? This tense that is over here. Can it hop? No, because this is not a verb that is overt. It cannot hop. This hopping cannot happen. If only there was something else I could do. Yes, there is. Do support. So we're going to add a do. So the resulting structure would be do plus tense plus the interrogative force. This will be the resulting structure. And the spell out eventually will be did or didn't. Sorry, didn't. He eat the food. All of this lives in the head C. Good. I hope everything was clear so far. There's only a few things we need to discuss before we wrap it up. And then I think we've covered everything that has to do with do support. Now, there is an interesting case where the verb is there's a mismatch between the verb and the agreement with the subject. And what I'm talking about is what you see in front of you right now. The aren't I entitled to claim social security benefits? Whenever we use with in the interrogative form, the one that goes with it is are. So if you undo the subject verb inversion, you're going to end up with I. But of course, we don't say I are, we say I am. Why is this happening? You can't say, for example, I aren't entitled to claim social security benefits. You could say that this is happening because of all that movements that I showed earlier in the previous example. So interrogative auxiliaries attached to a null Q complement non-interrogative forms do not. This could be a likely explanation. So we can say that an interrogative form can have a different spell out from its non-interrogative form. That is to say, because if we look at the previous slide, because of the Q over here, the auxiliary is spelled out in a different way than what it would have been spelled out as if it wasn't for the Q being there. And that's why we have aren't I instead of what else? We can say almond I. That's why we have aren't I. So you can say that be plus tense, first person singular pronoun, plus the clitic negative, plus the Q is spelled out as aren't. This is one explanation that we can put forward to explain this phenomenon. So without the Q, then we'll have something different. We can't use it as we've seen here. I aren't entitled to plaintiff. So if this is flagged as a sentence that is not correct, we move on to the last bit. If you made it this far, say it in the comments. Show me that you're insane. Show me that you like this stuff. And that's what makes you insane. Okay, anyways. So the emphatic do and the EMP or emphasis marker. Sometimes we use do support even when we don't need it. We use it because there's a little bit of emphasis that we want to put on the sentence. He did win it, for example, taken from Radford's book. So the capitals here mark the contrastive stress. I'm making that part stand out because I'm putting a lot of stress on it. Denying any suggestion that he did not win the race. This is what I want to aim. This is my intention by putting a lot of stress on did. So does this count as do support? You can say yes if you consider that the emphasis marker also solicitates this use of do supports in this case. So you can say that the T carries an abstract emp marker, which is spelled out as contrastive stress. The emp must attach to a verbal stem, so it triggers a do support. There are two views. View A, or the first view, we can say that the emp has phonological but no morphological content, so it is not an affix and cannot lower onto the V. Because the question you can ask is, well, the emp, why doesn't it just do affix hopping, for example? Because it has phonological features, which is the stress, but it's not itself a morpheme. It has no contents other than stress. So it cannot lower onto the V, unlike the tense affixes, for example, which can lower onto the V, especially with the past, as well as the present. The second view for the emp head is to say that it is a clitic, just like the or the not contraction form. And this clitic lives in the T's complement and it needs a do as a host. We can also say that this is a second view to explain this. To be honest with you, I think the minimalist program or framework generally falls short when it comes to things like emphasis or the pragmatic side of language with a capital L. So eventually throughout the years, they started adding more of these emph markers, focus phrases, and all of these touch on the phonological/morphological level, but also everything comes from this or pragmatic level, even the pragmatic level, the intention, the communicative intention of the speaker. It's really hard to do that with the minimalist program. And there are other frameworks that handle that much better, such as functional discourse grammar, for example, and maybe other theories that are more functional than generative in their nature. Enough me rambling about this. That's the end of the video. Like, comment, share with your friends, and let me know what things I should talk about next, maybe. Watch my other videos. I have other videos where I talk about things that are more accessible to the general public. If you like fun facts about language, you can watch them. And then I have this playlist or series or course, as YouTube likes to call it, with a lot of videos about syntax. Once we cover syntax, I'm going to move on and talk about something else in the realm of theoretical linguistics, probably a little bit of phonology, but there's still a long way until I get there. That's it. See you on the next one.